This is the battleground in which we live our Christian lives. Paul says to the Ephesians, put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires. So any idea that you ever got from anybody who told you that you're now perfect, I had someone come and talk to me after a service in the last month, and a young fellow said to me, I've been attending a church where the minister has told me that absolute perfection is God's purpose for me, and I know I am not perfect, and it's killing me. And I said, well, of course it will actually kill you if you stay there. Now, we begin in that way because what we have here sets the context for self-control. As C.S. Lewis puts it in Screwtape Letters, and we often quote this. I remember Screwtape says to one of his nephews, he says, all that we can really hope to do is encourage our enemies, that is the Christians, to take the good things that our ultimate enemy has given them, that is the things that God has given, to encourage them to take the good things at the wrong time, or in the wrong quantity, or with the wrong person. We live in a self-indulgent culture. Remember in Ecclesiastes, in the middle of chapter 2, I denied myself nothing that my heart desired. I just did whatever I wanted to do, he said. Well, that's largely the approach of Western culture. Enjoy yourself, please yourself, satisfy yourself, do whatever you want to do. Now, the Christian lives in that world, and that world easily bleeds into the church. Remember, we always say that the boat is supposed to be in the water, but the water isn't supposed to be in the boat. But when this water gets in the boat, this is the kind of thing you'll come up against. You'll begin to hear professing Christians saying things like this, you know, we have all been set free, so we can live as we choose. The approach is kind of like, we bought the fire insurance, so now we can strike matches in the house. That's the kind of mentality. People who say these things, I don't think I've ever understood the nature of the gospel. Now, as a result of that kind of mentality, I'm free, therefore I can just do as I choose. Anybody who does what I'm doing for you now, and that is that progress in sanctification involves effort or work on our part, is almost inevitably branded as a legalist. Because in the minds of people, the idea is that any attempt on our part to do anything at all must surely be that we are depending on ourselves. Not so. It is the Spirit of God that works within us in order that He might put the willing desire within us to do what we're supposed to do. And a careful reading of Paul makes that absolutely clear, that true freedom is not a license to do as you please, but it is a liberty to do as we ought. James does the same thing. James 1:25. He says, here you have the perfect law of liberty. He says you can fall in on the one side to license, you can fall in on the other side to legalism, but he says this is the perfect law that gives you liberty. Here is the freedom. I remember years ago, and I may have told you this, I was listening when I was a teenager to a talk by a minister, and he used an illustration of a break-in in a post office where they took a lot of money in the United Kingdom. The way that it happened was, they put somebody in there toward the end of the day, and before the post office was locked, the person hid in a closet. And then in the darkness of the night, he came to the door and he let his fellow thieves in, and so they robbed the place entirely. And the minister said, you see, it was an inside job, and sin is just like that. Every sin is an inside job. Self-control is the Spirit-enabled ability to avoid excesses and to stay within the God-given boundaries. So the Spirit of God at work within us enables us to do just that. That's why, again, Solomon in his wisdom, recognizing that the real issue, says to his son, as it were, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. The heart is the center in the Bible of both your mind and your emotions. So if we manage to do all these different things externally and don't guard our heart, then we will as be susceptible to temptation if we live in a wardrobe as we will if we live in the center of New York City. Because the real enemy of our souls is within. Religion says, become by self-effort what you're not. Christianity, Christian faith says, become by grace what you are. Become by grace what you are, because you have been set free, 2 Corinthians 5, in order that you might live for him. Paul says it is imperative that we take every thought captive, bringing it under the rubric of God's authority. You remember he says to the Philippians, I want you to think about the kind of things that are good and profitable and so on. When I was young, people would tell me, so you can't listen to that music? They might have been right. But I mean, my songs weren't that bad. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. Is this really a problem? You're going to tell me that this is on the same continuum as filthy rap music? I mean, there is a difference. It's hard to take every thought captive when the stuff we fill our minds with militates against the very lordship of Jesus. We need then to learn to nip these things in the bud. We need to learn to be honest about temptation. We need to say to ourselves, I can't put myself in those vulnerable places. So what the Spirit of God does within our hearts is in part to break the chain of self-indulgence, to enable us to resist fleeting pleasures. And we do so in the awareness of the fact that there's a direct flow through from what goes on between our ears. Sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. It's clear.